Welcome back to NDTV Profit. Now, let's try and understand where does the government spend. Now, we've already explained the meaning of fiscal deficit. We've explained where does the government's revenue come from. Now, let's try and understand where does that money get actually spent. So, there are two types of expenditure that a government undertakes. One is capital expenditure and the second is revenue expenditure. Capital expenditure is essentially any kind of money that is spent by the government for long-term returns. So it could be building roads, building bridges, building water tanks. All of these are capital expenditure that is spent so that the long-term growth of the company is intact. Alongside this, any kind of spending that the government does on education, on healthcare, on social welfare or such things are also considered as part of capital expenditure of the government. Revenue expenditure is what the government spends on a daily basis, on a day-to-day basis essentially. This may include rent for any kind of government office. It could also include salaries that are paid to government employees across the span of the central government. So revenue expenditure is day-to-day spending of the government, while capital expenditure is a long-term spending of the government. Typically, for a country like India, overall expenditure will always be higher than the revenue. That is because we are a growing country, we are an emerging economy, and therefore the government needs to spend so that the country's long-term growth is maintained, while on a day-to-day basis the government is able to pay enough people so that the operations can continue. Going ahead, of course, the expectation is that fiscal deficit will lower further. That means the government will be able to tighten its expenditure while also growing its revenue. This is likely to put India in a much better spot than where it was just a few years ago.